Hello and welcome back to the OTB channel. Now a couple of weeks ago I did a Slackware 15 video and it seemed to generate quite a lot of interest. However, looking at some of the comments, a lot of people are worried about how you maintain the system and how you install software, given that Slackware doesn't automatically resolve dependencies. Well, I'm going to show you what I do in this video. And more than that, I'm going to time it. See you after the intro. Okay, welcome back. So, another Slackware video already. And I wouldn't normally sort of do a similar subject quite so quickly, because I've done quite a few videos about Slackware over the last year or so. But I thought now that we've got Slackware 15 out there and we've generated some interest, the video's got nearly 14,000 views, which is pretty stunning for a channel this size. I think a few people now are wondering, what do I do next? How do I approach this whole software management thing with Slackware, knowing that Slackware doesn't resolve dependencies? Well, I'm here to tell you it's not a problem, despite some of the comments that I have actually received. One person, and I paraphrase here, said something like, without software management, if you've got to compile everything from source, you might as well do something like Linux from scratch. Well, it's not true, to start off with. It's, yes, you do compile a lot from scratch, but you don't have to compile everything from scratch. There are repos out there where you can install pre-compiled packages for Slackware. Alien Bob's is probably the most common one. But also the actual process of compiling software is relatively simple and straightforward. And to be honest, I think the only people who are really worried about this thing about not resolving dependencies is people who don't run Slackware, because most of the Slackers that you speak to don't have an issue with it, because not having dependency management is not a problem. We have a package manager called Slack Package. It installs, it removes, it upgrades packages. It doesn't need to do dependency management. Dependency management is only when you go towards unofficial packages. And even then, there's a whole range of tools that can help you do the dependency stuff that you need to do. So I thought I would prove a point to myself here as much as anything else. I created that VM on the Slackware install a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't done anything with it, but it was still on the system. And I thought, right, let's go from scratch with that and see how long it takes. Let's install the Mate desktop, which I generally do. Let's install all the utilities that I normally install, so Alacrity, PCman FM, Genie, Polybar, i3, DWM, etc., etc. And so add in a couple of window managers and add an extra desktop environment and add lots of bits and pieces, a few fonts as well that I would normally use, and see how long it normally takes. And I didn't have a clue how long it took because, I enjoy the process, so I'm not generally timing myself. But actually, I now have an answer. It took me 1 hour and 5 minutes to take the newly installed Slackware to the point where I had what I considered to be a fully configured system for myself. This is the process that I would do. So this isn't going to be a how-to as such. I'm just literally going to go through the stages I went through, which took 1 hour and 5 minutes. And you can see what I do in order to manage software in Slackware. Right, so you should see on your screen now my Slackware 15 virtual machine. And you'll instantly see we're at the Mate desktop. So this was the first thing that I install after installation. and I use the MSB build or the Mate Slack builds. They've got a page here, just search for it, and what they provide is either a set of binary packages that you can download from Slackware UK and just install, or you can go to their GitHub, clone their repo, and run 3 build scripts. That's all there actually is to it. Normally I would go to the GitHub and build all the packages, but for simplicity and just to keep things simple, I went to Slackware UK, I went to the MSB repo that's there, I looked under 15, I went for the latest version, 8664, and I basically just used LFTP to mirror this folder, brought it down, and just used the standard Slackware tools to install all the packages in dependencies, base and extra. What I did was actually use the command upgrade package -- reinstall -- install new, and I started off with the depths folder. I then went into the base folder, and finally I installed the extras, and there you see them all. Dead simple, didn't take more than 5 minutes at the outside, and as you can see, I have a pretty vanilla at the moment Mate desktop installed. So I haven't done any additional customization at the moment. I've just installed the desktop. What you will also see is there is a CSB Slack builds repo as well. So if you wanted Cinnamon, exactly the same process. You can either download the binaries from Slackware UK, or you can clone the GitHub repo and run a few scripts. They also have, if I just go back here on Slackware UK, and I go back to the front page, there we go. You will see CSB. So the CSB repo is there. So all good. Mate installed, not a problem. Now, I believe there are other builds around that for GNOME Slack builds, for instance, if you wanted that. But the big advantage of using CSB or MSB is you can actually manage that repo with a plugin for Slack package called Slack Package Plus. Now, I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into huge detail. I'm simply going to, well, let's make this a little bit bigger. Oops. Why does this not want to increase in size? Oh, of course, it's the flipping terminal. Hold on. There we go. I'm too used to my key bindings for alacrity. So if I now go into sudo nano etc Slack package plus. Oops, and I went a bit quick there. So slackpackageplus.conf, and I open that up. What you'll get is a text file, which is your configuration file. And there's only a few sections that you really need to take account of. The first one is this packages priority section. This is useful if, for instance, you wanted to run multiple repos, because this is what the Slack Package Plus plugin does. It allows you to use other repos, external repos. If you've got packages or repos that contain the same package, this is where you set the priority. So you can see here, I'm using the restricted repo for VLC. That's what I wanted to choose. And obviously I've got MSB there. What I also needed to do was to list all the repos I'm using. I tend to keep my usage of other repos to a minimum, to be honest. I will install LibreOffice, and I will install VLC, and that's pretty much it, to be honest. Everything else I install from a Slack build. So you list the repos you're going to use there, and then you either uncomment or create a mirror plus entry. The Alien Bob and the Alien Bob's restricted repos are both already here, but they're commented out, so you just need to uncomment them. I've done that and pointed to the Slackware UK repo, and I've also created an entry for MSB there. If you go all the way down to the bottom of this file, you'll see all the different repos that Slack Package Plus does support. I tend, as I say, just to use Alien's repos, but you've got others there if you want to use them. I wouldn't mix too many repos if I was you, but that's just my opinion. You do what you want. So if I come out now from there, and let's say I wanted to install a package, I know that in Alien Bob's restricted repo, he does indeed have VLC. So if I just do, let me go to root first. Slack package, search. Let's do a search first for VLC. And you can see, actually, I've already installed it. So VLC installed. There are other VLC packages about. There's another one, VLC2, that Alien's got there. I don't want that. So that's installed. And if I go to sound and video, there you go, all good. If I wanted to find out whether any of these packages have dependencies, that's pretty easy as well. I would do Slack package info VLC. And it will give me the various packages that are available. So here's Alien's package. There's nothing in the required field there, so I should be good. Not always the case, though. I mean, if I was to install something like OBS Studio, for instance, let's just do a quick info, OBS Studio, and see whether or not it's possible to install that. And it is. Alien's got it in his repo, but you can see here that there are additional packages required. Now, the Slack Package Plus plugin will not manage dependencies for you. You need to read, but it's pretty easy to find out what these things are. And what I would tend to do if I was installing this on Slackware is I would also do a Slack package info for each of these additional packages to see whether or not there are any other dependencies that I need to think about. So yeah, I do pull out a notepad and pen, and I do make a few notes. If we were, for instance, just to install Slack package, install OBS Studio. I need to do spell it right to start off with. There we go. You'll see that I am only offered the OBS Studio package. I'm not offered any of the dependencies. So don't get yourself in trouble by not installing dependencies. But it's pretty easy to install most things. And while we're here, I have installed LibreOffice with Slack package, and you can see it's there in the menu. So if I open up LibreOffice Draw or Write, whatever it's called, there you can see it opens up. It's useful having that in Alien's repo because it's a big package and I really don't want to get into compiling it if I can possibly avoid it. However, for everything else that I install, essentially I'm going to use Slack builds, with the exception of some minor things like fonts that I'm going to download from the Nerd Fonts web page and install them manually into USR share fonts. But everything else is going to be a Slack build. Now, some of you may already have installed Slackware 15 and gone straight over to the Slackbills webpage, and you will see it's still on 14.2. Now, the reason for that is there's a lot of Slackbill scripts to rebuild here for 15. So it's going to be a week or two before slackbills.org catches up. By all means, you can try using the scripts from 14.2, but you might find that a lot of them don't build because the packages on Slackware 15 are a lot newer than what is expected here. You can, of course, use the scripts and update them and modify them yourselves. Or, and this is what I do and what I've been doing for the last 6 to 12 months, I've been using the Slackbills repo by Ponce, which is based on Current. Now, there's not much difference between Current and Slackware 15 at the moment. So, in order to get everything set up, I prefer to use this Current repo. And once the Slackbills website has caught up and it's doing 15, I'll change everything over. But using Ponce's Git repo is a quick way to get up and running now and to get most of the packages that you want. Now, I've talked a little bit about Slackbills and how you can create your own Slackbill scripts before in previous videos. I've also talked about some of the tools that are really useful that can even help you resolve dependencies. One of the tools that many people use is SBO package. It doesn't solve dependencies on its own, but it does have a really nice utility called SQG that you can use to build a dependency queue, then feed that into SBO package, and it'll install all the dependencies in the right order that they're needed. My preference, though, is a package, or it's essentially a set of Perl scripts called SBO tools. And it pretty much allows you to install anything from a Slackbills repo that you wish. By default, it will stick with 14.2 at the moment. And I have noticed that they haven't released an updated version yet. It's not a problem, though, because you can tell it manually to pull down the Slackbills tree from any repo that you want, including Ponce's. So what I would do is after I've installed it, and you just download it from the page and do install package, you would type SBO config -r and then the URL of the repo that you want to use, which in my case would be Ponce's repo. What that does, that creates a configuration file. I think it's actually in SBO tools. Yeah, let's have a look. Yeah, called sbotools.conf. And if you were to look at that, you can see it's just got one line. And that is pointing to Ponce's Slackbills repo. Once that's done, you do SBO fetch, or is it SBO snap fetch? I think it's, let's just double check here. Documentation. It's SBO snap fetch. Okay, I'm always mixing those two up. So SBO snap fetch, and it'll pull down all the information that you need. A tree, basically, from the Slackbills directory. And after that, all you need to do is install. So I have quite a few packages that I wanted to install. And as part of this experiment to see how long it's going to take to install everything, let me just show you what I've installed using SBO tools. So it's var log packages, and let's just grep SBO. Right, so you can see these are all the packages that I've installed this morning using SBO tools. So I've got Alacrity, CCAT, which just gives you a bit of coloured output for catting. D menu, Genie, GRC, i3 gaps, i3 status. What else have I got? Nitrogen, LX appearance, PC Man FM, Polybar, and basically all the additional bits and pieces that I need to work with my window managers. And it is really easy to use. Rofi, of course, and Rofi emoji. So let's install something. I haven't installed fontsawesome yet, and I'm not quite sure what it's called in the Slack builds tree. So let's just have a look at their page and do a search. And it's called fontsawesome with a capital F and a capital A. So, okay. So SBO install fonts awesome. Right, do you want to proceed? Yes, I do, please. Are you sure? Absolutely. So it's pulling down the build script and the source package, and it will build it and it will install it for me. And that's all there is to it. And this little set of Perl scripts, SBO package, will actually resolve dependencies in a sense, because its ability to resolve dependencies is going to be very much dependent on the Slack build scripts that it's looking at and them having been completed properly with required lines and stating what the dependencies actually are. And as long as they're there, this will go out and do it for you automatically. So hardly a big worry. Now, as well as installing Mate, I always like to pull down my my build of DWM and from my GitLab repo, and I thought I'd install i3 as well. So I installed i3 from Ponce's repo using SBO tools, and I just pulled down my own build of DWM, and it was just a sudo make clean install. What I needed to do, though, for my own build of DWM is I had to create an xinitrc file. So if I go to etc x11 xinit, and you have a look there, you will see there is an xinitrc.dwm file there. So if I went into that, it's pretty simple. All I've basically done is I've copied in the defaults from some of the other files that are there, and I've just got this one line, exec dbus launch usr local bin DWM. And that's all there is to it, to be honest. So just to prove that that's actually happened, I've shut that terminal down too early, too quickly. If I go into this and run X window manager config, you will see what I've now got in my startup file, which will start if I do start X. So I've got KDE, XFCE, Fluxbox, Blackbox, Window Maker, FVWM2, TWM, and MWM. All of those were by default already included, but you can now see that DWM is there, i3 gaps is there, and so is the Mate session. So I'll just quickly log out and log into DWM so you can see that, and I'm going to do the same with i3 gaps. And here you go, here's DWM with the wallpaper that's already part of Slackware. I haven't installed any additional ones yet, but you can see that everything's working. Rofi's here, the works. Let's go and have a quick look at i3. And here you have i3 with Polybar. No sensors found. Well, I'm on a virtual machine, but it's all there. Everything works as you would expect. And again, my Rofi's there. So that's it. Let's go and have a quick chat. Right, so that's how I configure my Slackware system. It's hardly difficult. and doesn't take very long. 1 hour and 5 minutes it took me, and I'm not the fastest. I wasn't multitasking. I was doing one task after another. Now, you'll have to excuse my voice today. It sounds a little bit different. I think I'm losing it. I spent 8 hours yesterday doing a workshop, and I didn't stop talking, and I feel like my voice is going slightly today. So if it doesn't sound quite right, excuse me. But ultimately, hope you enjoyed that video, guys. I don't know what the weather's like around where you are, but the wind and the snow has been pretty appalling around here. So stay safe, people. Be careful. Stay inside. Perfect opportunity to get that Slackware system installed. Other than that, that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed the video. As usual, I'd like to thank all of you for supporting the channel. Please like and subscribe if you like what I do. And of course, I'd like to thank all my existing Patreons, the names that you can see in the background here. That's it for today, guys, and I'll see you next week.